we're trying to help the church with this. I'm working closely with the Communication Service Department of the church and the missionary department and the Young Single Adult Project, all that stuff. But I'll hit on that later. But what we do is we mimic the traditional model. And the traditional model is you've got PR, which rolls to marketing, which rolls to sales, which rolls to customer support, typically, the life of a lead. Well, here, this becomes social media, and now this is digital media. This is split between two things, virtual media and then live media. And this is passive, very active. And the strategy is actually to move it through this. So this becomes your massive PR machine if you do it well. But this has changed dramatically. When I said marketing before, people always thought of brand and advertising. Both of those are dead, pretty much. And I'll tell you why. When I say advertising, I mean traditional advertising in print media and so on. In 2012, Google finally moved ahead of all magazines and all newspapers combined. Just dwarfs it. And what's different with Google advertising is that you get immediate, quick feedback. You can split test copy changes in seconds, and you can tie exactly what you spend to exactly what you get. I liken it to the old direct mail. Direct response advertising is similar to what digital advertising is today, where it's always based on a call to action. Now, don't get me wrong, branding and all that stuff still has power, but nothing like it used to, because the big problem, the heyday of branding was when ABC, CBS, and NBC were the three networks, and that's all there was. And you had all of America tuning in, the Nielsen's ratings drove everything. Well, what do you do now when you've got thousands of YouTube channels, and millions of YouTube channels, and thousands of cable networks that fracture all those things in all different areas? You can't get enough reach and frequency on any message to really convert someone with just a brand approach. And what the internet does is fraction it even more, and so they've taken, the internet is now two extremes. It is stack it deep and sell it cheap like Amazon, or the ultimate niche boutique. Those are the two things that do really well. The stuff in between gets hammered. And so stack it deep and sell it cheap is like my buddy runs wheatgrasskits.com, and he sells $80,000 a month of wheatgrass kits. Well, that's about as niche boutique as you can get. But if he owns wheatgrasskits.com, the top of the search engines on Google, he gets it almost for nothing. There's never been more leverage than there is now if you know how to leverage these two. So the LDS Church, for example, they had a pretty good PR department and a pretty good live missionary department out in the field, but they didn't have anything in between. And so they didn't have the digital, they don't have the virtual. The example is they're really great at making videos, but they don't know who watches them. So folks like Lindsay, she always put Lindsay Sterling, the dancing violinist who has 2 billion views, at the end of every video she has a little call to action.
So real quick, you know she's one of our ambassadors?
I heard that.
So we can, if we can divert that river, she'll do it.
Yeah. The key is you got to do it her way.
Yeah.
But if we can learn her way, there's nothing more powerful, because she knows everybody else. She can bring the whole ecosystem to you. If you get her, you get Devin Graham, and you get Stuart Edge, and you get the Harmon brothers, and you can just leverage all of them. So that's a gold mine. But the key is what she's learned to do is she uses her social media to promote songs, and she gets a ton of traffic first on a video format. Then she starts selling the MP3 downloads. So she starts monetizing. Digital is things like PDF files you can download. It's anything that's a call to action that you can actually download something. And what most people do is they just do tons of social and hope it's going to work. But you got to bridge these so that you have offers. So the model we call it is the pitcher catcher model. And this is where it starts making sense, I hope. So in baseball, you've got your catcher's mitt. And the catcher's mitt is the website that is the conversion device So most people have a website, and it converts 1% of people who go to it. But if you get really good at tweaking and improving your website, you can get it so that ours converts 15%. 1 out of 7 people who goes to our website becomes a lead. Well, that's the website that has a form that's a call to action, where you never give away stuff for free anymore. You always trade it. So it comes from a book called Permission Marketing by Seth Godin. He's the #1 marketer in the world, and he's the one that invented the opt-in email. Pretty much. He was the vice president at Yahoo, and he said, look, if you give me permission to market to you, I'll give you something free. So that's what you're doing is you're baiting the hook with some little free thing in exchange for their name, address, and phone number. So this little web form becomes the key to build the database. The ball is the content, and then the pitcher is throwing the ball at the catcher's mitt. So these are the 3 ingredients. We have to have a conversion device, great content, but the big one is you've got to have lots of numbers. So when we started my business, we had about 30,000 people in our database, and we, piddled around for 5 years. And then one of my good buddies taught me about ratcheting this sucker up. So as soon as we did that, we realized we need to grow the database. Now we have 2.2 million. We have every single sales manager in the United States, all the way up to the CEO of the sales department. And so when we send content out, we send 2.2 million out instead of 40,000, and nothing can touch us. So that's the mojo. And there's lots of ways to get
At
that.
a 15%.
What's that?
At a response rate of 15%.
A conversion rate.
Conversion rate.
Yeah.
So,
So
and like in the old days, if you had a 3% response in a direct mail or something else, you blew it up.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So
The key to that
that's
is
the key.
the type of content and the offers.
Oh, I'm sure
I don't know if
there's
you want to go into the
a lot
closing
of-
model.
Yeah.
Components.
I think that's a great idea. But this is really the model. See, and most people only have that. The church only has that. They hope that all their videos are going to do something. And the day of organic videos being effective is long gone. So I worked with Michael Colmier. You might know Michael. He's out of Alpine.
Yeah.
And he's had 2 big exits, and they put him in. He's sort of like the church's CMO right now. And he said, look, Ken, I need your help. We got those 12 addiction videos. What do we do with them? I said, put an offer at the end of them where they can download the 7 ways to deal with a family member who has an addiction. So the offer can be downloaded if they fill out their information. Then you give them the content. Now you have a database that you can now nurture them in a sequence. So that's the concept. So the first big rule is this one of what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a huge community of followers in social media. And so then the way you start doing that is, you've got to get your properties in place. So what we have to do to start with you is we get your blog, your podcast, your Facebook group, your Instagram, your Snapchat, all the different properties. These are your catcher's mitts. And think of them each one as a finger on the glove. They each do something slightly different. Like Twitter, for example, if you had a couple 100,000 followers on Twitter, all Twitter is really good for is every time you're about ready to launch another issue of the rescue report, you just quickly let them know. Yeah, guys, we're going to be on today at 5, boom. And everything just goes crazy because you got 100,000 people who are aware of it. It's like a megaphone. So we'll go through tactically how each one of the different social media platforms contribute. So anyway, this is the core model, the pitcher-catcher model. The diverter river don't make well. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get free traffic. So we look for a strong name for your organization, and then the second big rule. You want to write that one down. It's called swim with the sharks. And
Without being able to lie.
yeah, it's not the Harvey McCabe, but it's the same
Love that.
concept.
Great book.
So a shark is a big brand. Tony Robbins, great white shark. you're already doing it, but we do it on purpose. And if we can do it because a shark has tons and tons of followers. And so if we can swim with the sharks, now there's two kinds of fish that swim with the sharks. There's the remora, that little sucker fish, and it just attaches itself to the shark. It's a parasite. The shark tries to crush it and kill it and wipe it off because it gives nothing back to the shark. And most people who swim with sharks just take from the shark. They hate it. The second is the pilot fish that swims by the mouth of the shark and eats the parasites and the shark because it keeps the shark healthy. And it's symbiotic. So we have to become symbiotic with the sharks. And if you recognize what Tony wants from it, he wants to rub shoulders with you because then his image is that he's giving back to the world and blah, 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 and everything's better. And so you got to always give back to the sharks. But the other thing that's pretty unique is that Lindsay learned what she could do is she could start doing joint projects with the sharks. And I interviewed her for Forbes, and when I built that relationship, I was one that was able to bring her to the church to do the face-to-face event. And she taught me a lot of this stuff, and then she turned me loose on the rest of the Provo YouTuber community, and I interviewed like 10 of them for a three article series on Forbes. And they shared with me their rules, and I realized, oh my gosh, they're the same rules, just different names. So they have two main rules with the YouTubers. They call it collaboration, collabs, spelled wrong, and covers. Those are the two main things that they do. And a collaboration is a swim with the shark, and a cover is a divert a river. So let me give you examples here because this is very relevant since you're in the movie kind of industry. This is what we got to do. So a collaboration is where you do something jointly together with another really big brand. And a cover is where you play off. Like, let me give you an example. A cover was Lindsay. She was voted off America's Got Talent in 2010.
I didn't know that.
Because she failed big time, and it ticked her off so bad. But the judges threw out at the last round and said, "We don't think there's a future for dancing violinists, and besides, you missed a few notes when you were pirouetting in the air." They were pretty hard on her. She was bawling. I watched the video. She was just a cutie, but it just ticked her off. She's just this feisty little. So she went back to pro, and she was ready to throw in the towel and said, "No." But she went to a class that was being taught by Devin Grant. He's now Devin Supertramp, and he's almost as big as she is. He does all those crazy extreme videos where they jump off the rocks down in Moab and do surfing and it's just crazy stuff. But he was really the brains behind her, and they dated for a while. He said, what you need to do is you need to go find a big event that's about to happen and ride the wave. So he colored and gave her an example. He said there's a little video game called Zelda, and they've got millions and millions and millions of kids who play Zelda, and they have a soundtrack. And what if you dressed up like Zelda and went up in the mountains above Provo and filmed a little video dancing around, playing the soundtrack of Zelda, and let's release it the week before the game comes out. And then let's send them a copy. And they had 27 million views in like 3 weeks. And that one thing put her on the map. And that was a cover. It's where she replayed another song. So about every 3 months, she does another cover where she replays like Phantom of the Opera and the Star Wars theme. So she swims with big rivers of existing brand and siphons it off to her. Now, collaboration is where she goes and she does joint music videos with big brands. So she either siphons off a big brand or an event, or she collaborates with a big brand. But those two, and then they completely share. So she shares it on her site, they share it on their site, and they both do better. It's additive. In fact, it's exponentially additive. It's crazy. So this is really the heart and soul, these two rules of what we do. This is it. But the key is we have to, we don't just want social buzz. We want to move it to a monetization model. So that's really the model then, is we have this huge funnel, okay? looks a lot like this. We have influencers up here. Now this is my corporate model, so pardon the phraseology, but you'll get the picture. There's 7 steps in the funnel. Influencers are first, so we go get the likes of Guy Kawasaki and Jeffrey Gitomer and Jack Welch and Steve Young's on our board, and we have them speak at all of our big events. So one thing we're going to probably want to do is help you launch an annual virtual event of the who's who, where they come in and they maybe we just do things we can do to change the world with relevance in your spatial event, and get Tony to speak for 15 minutes. And it's all virtual. The first time we did this, you remember we had 15,700 people. It set a world's record for the largest online sales seminar, and we had 61 speakers. And what we did is we just arranged them in 6 different tracks, 15 minutes at a time, and just went through the day and just killed it. The year later, we did the next one of 22,000, 33,000, 35,000. Last one, we just had 80 different, we had the who's who of the biggest speakers in the industry. And all they did is they bring people to our content, and then we move it down the funnel with, we have industry content, then we have company content, then we have product content, then we have proof, where we prove that we really are who we are. Then we have sales content and client content. So that might not be completely relevant for what you're doing, but it's pretty close. I mean,
I can translate it.
yeah, you can translate it. So we have another version, and our goal is just fill the funnel with huge numbers up here, but then offer compelling stuff. So this might be where you start offering your little welcome kit that starts monetizing, and down this way, then you're looking for big donors to separate themselves out, and that's where you raise the big money. But the little money is just as good nowadays. So that's really the model, just those 2 major rules, and we just go tap, because who doesn't want to be part of the message, And the funny thing is, it's like dominoes. As soon as you get Tony, you can go get a half dozen of the other big guys, because they all want to be on board. So that's really the strategy that I've seen be really powerful. And then once we have this massive social platform, then we start doing digital media. Like, for example, what I do, because you're busy and I'm really busy, I developed a methodology called the core content model. And so let's say I do a webinar on how to use Twitter. And this is like the hands of a clock here. So I do a webinar, and I'll always do it with a joint presenter with a big brand. Okay. So in fact, before I go here, let me draw one more little net. So my basic strategy, and I think this is what we want to do with Operation Underground Railroad for about the next year, is we co-brand you with just anybody who's anybody. So when I started, I wrote this little blog, and nobody knew who I was. So I went and I strategically located about 50 of the very top bloggers, authors, writers in the whole sales space. And I actually analyzed how many followers they had, how many books they published, I had metrics for everything, how many Twitter followers, blah, blah, blah. And we found that Trish Bertuzzi was probably the #1 thought leader in the inside sales space. She ran a big group on LinkedIn of just inside sales people, which I wanted. So I started following her, and the acronym is look, listen, like, love. And this is what your staff does. You have to do it with them about once a month for an hour or 2, so that they see what you would write. Does that make sense? Because their job is to mimic and become you on steroids. I've got about 7 people who run my infrastructure as if it's me, but it's my words, and I always synchronize so that they say it the way I would say it. And if there's some student who wants to do a story about me, this is what I would say, and then from then on, they know what to say to a student and what they say to a decision maker. So you look at what she's doing, you listen to her conversation, you press the like button, you make comments, and then you love, which is leave unsolicited validation. And what that does, because if she knows you're a player, then you get her attention, and boom, you've got another thought leader to add to your influencer thing. So next trade show we were at together, where we were both speaking, she runs up and she about tackles me, gave me this big old hug. She said, "Ken, I love you. You're so awesome. Can't believe you're doing that." And I said, "You're great, Trish. I've been wanting to meet you forever. We should do a joint webinar together." She said, "I would love that." She said, "Let's go after the real high-end vice presidents of sales, because that's where we all make money, right?" I said, "Yeah, let's do that." So we did a joint webinar for an hour, and just like the process here. And I had a huge database, but she had the brand at first. So I promoted the crap out of it. I gave her all the attendees. So that's the key. When you collaborate, you also share what you get, and then they share back. And you commit that we'll grow together. And that seems a little counterintuitive, but you just kill it. So I grew her brand, she grew mine, and in one fell swoop, I was almost equal with her. But the difference was, I outworked all of them because I did the same thing with every single one of them. I've done almost 250 joint events of some kind. Now I stack the deck. So for example, it's hard to get with that many folks. So at Dreamforce 3 years ago, we invited them all to come to me. And I did a half-an-hour webinar with 44 of them, just one after another. And we had people on the show floor come, but we filmed it. So we had a film crew filming me and them doing a joint webinar together to all of our national audience while we were on the show floor. So you see how we leverage your time. It only took 4 days. I could never have done that. But all of them started promoting my stuff and I promoted theirs. We all grew better, but now my brand is up here because you get a little bit of brand equity from all of them. That's really the strategy. And so once you've built that and solidified the Operation Underground Railroad, then you can start shifting your messaging a little bit, if that's the way you feel so good about it, to where you start bringing in Liberty 89 and the rest of it. The abolitionist in my mind is the really nice monetization model that gives back while you do it. Okay, so you do the joint event, whatever it is, maybe your podcast. We want to go beyond just the audio. I think we want to capture video because here's what you can do with it. So our online webinar system, what it does is it lets us film the slide deck and the audio at the same time. So this is live. I do a webinar archived, and the archive gets twice as much as the live one because people can't make the live one because their schedules. Then what I do is I save it as a YouTube video, and there's this week's video for YouTube, but it still only took me an hour. Then I strip out the audio file, the MP4, and I now have, the MP3, and I have a podcast. In fact, I usually have about 4 of them because this was an hour and they only want about 15, 20 minutes on podcast. Then I send the podcast out to transcribeme.com, and they transcribe what you said. And now, instead of you having to write something, Tim, you've got 4 or 5 blog articles in the same hour that you did. Wow. And we just give him a couple of low-cost staff members to do this. Then you've got, you can actually put the MP3s into iTunes and Android, because statistically, busy people today want to listen to your message while they're traveling. That's where we're getting all my sales guys. This is where they spend their time listening to. They don't watch me or read me. They listen. Millennials all listen. They love that. So we break out your audio as a byproduct of the cool things you're doing on Rescue Report and webinars with famous people. And then it really gets interesting because now you've got blogs already transcribed. You've got, let's say in your webinar you have the 10 things you can do to make America great again. Well, now you've got 10 tweets 10, Facebook messages, 10 LinkedIn messages, so 10 Snapchat. You see what I'm saying? So that 1 hour these are called derivative content, and that way we keep you leveraged, but your team is always cranking. One webinar gives them 2 months worth of stuff. Then what you do is you have a little designer you contract with, and you take those 10 good ideas, and you do what's called a cheat sheet. This is the hottest. These two right here are the hottest things on the web for giveaways. And you do an infographic. So we do an avatar, which is sort of an animated version of you. And we have your
We already have
face.
that.
Do you?
Well, it's a Bitmoji.
Yeah, we have your face. We illustrate the 10 cool things here and there. Here's Tim down here in the corner, and holding the little kid. I love that one. But these infographics come out every month or so, and people download those like crazy. And then the cheat sheet is just a single-page summary of the 10 rules. And these are the ones that get downloaded for people following you with email addresses and stuff like that to build your users. Then what you do, it just keeps going. Then you do an ebook. Now, again, you only did an hour. And all we did is we transcribe it. We send the slides and the pictures to a little designer, and they throw them into an ebook. And that ebook is only, $4, $5 on Amazon. But this one, our ebooks, sometimes get as much as 30 times the downloads of the original webinar. In fact, I did this with LinkedIn. You remember that? We were the #1 ebook for LinkedIn ever done. We had 35,000 that were distributed, and
It was a book.
it was only about 40 pages, and it was just the transcript from a 1-hour webinar.
So that 1 hour webinar spun off all of those things. The 1 hour webinar turns into 4 or 5 podcasts.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Which turn into. So you're taking one message.
Yeah, that way we leverage him. But see, you
Then-
want to be in all these other forms of media, because then you look like you're just
He becomes a brand.
yes,
He becomes a brand.
yes.
I can show you what it looks like.
And
On
then
Avatar.
then you got the paperback book for the good stuff, and then the hardback book. And then here's the craziest thing. This will blow your mind. We need to go back and do the Cliff Note versions of your 4 books already. Those are almost selling as much on Amazon as the originals. In fact, there are about 25 book companies who only summarize books for people. And so 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey has 7 other versions that only take 20 minutes to read, and they're making a killing.
Or listen to.
Because people don't have the attention span anymore. They don't want to read. They read the original book one time, but then they go read the condensed version like 10 times over the course of a decade. And so these little they're called a condensed. I found on the name for them, but condensed books. And they're from $4 to maybe $9. They're half the price of the original. They only take you 20 minutes to go over.
It's awesome.
And they're just killing it, Well, instead of letting everybody else do it, you do it, and that becomes one of your little teaser gifts to get people to read the original. Because here's the mojo. Right here, the research shows if they buy one thing for $4 to $7, they're 10 times more likely to buy more stuff from you. So
AKA become an abolitionist and start doing it.
yeah, because remember, permission marketing is just this little bait where you get bigger and bigger engagements. So you got to get them to do something. Then you nurture them to sequentially larger purchases and engagements with the cause. And this is the kind of thing we've done with the Boy Scouts of America. We built a blog for them because they didn't have. In fact, can I just tell you that story real fast? I told you, but it illustrates what we're doing.